Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. You don't wake up into the same life every day. You think you do, but something in you already knows that isn't true. There's a quiet moment, usually before your thoughts fully organize themselves, where the day hasn't decided what it's going to be yet. Before you remember who you are supposed to be. Before the familiar weight settles back onto your chest. That moment is brief, and most days, it passes unnoticed. But that moment matters more than you think, because the version of you that wakes up is not always the same one. Not psychologically, not emotionally, and not in the way your life responds to you afterward. This isn't about changing anything. It's about noticing what's already happening. Right now, there are versions of you living lives that feel heavier, tighter, more effortful, and there are versions of you living lives that feel simpler, clearer, strangely cooperative. They don't live in different places. They live in different states, and the difference between them is quieter than you've been taught to look for. Just pause for a second and notice this. Even as you're listening, there's a way you're listening, a posture inside, a tone behind your attention. That tone is not neutral, it never is, and it's already shaping what comes next. Most people think their life changes because something external shifts, a decision, a breakthrough, an opportunity, a loss. But if you watch closely, life usually changes after something internal has already moved. Not belief, not intention, state. The version of you that wakes up already carries a certain orientation toward reality, a way of interpreting what's about to happen, a quiet expectation, often unnamed. Some mornings everything feels slightly delayed, conversations feel heavier, small tasks feel resistant, people seem distracted or unavailable. Other mornings, things line up without effort. Messages arrive at the right time. You say the right thing without thinking about it. Time feels more flexible. Nothing dramatic happened overnight, but you're not in the same place inside, and reality responds to that far more faithfully than it responds to plans. There's something important here that most people miss. You don't experience life as it is. You experience life as it meets you, and the version of you that wakes up determines how that meeting goes. Around now, you might feel like there's more being pointed at than explained. That's intentional. We'll circle back to this in a clearer way shortly. Think about how often you've said, "I don't know why today feels like this," or "Everything just feels off today," or the opposite. "I don't know why, but today feels lighter." Those aren't moods caused by random chemistry. They're indicators of alignment or misalignment between you and the version of reality you're stepping into. Not punishment, not reward. Reflection. There are parallel versions of you moving through parallel versions of this world, not in a science fiction sense, in a perceptual sense. Same city, same people, same circumstances, different experience. One version of you interprets a delay as rejection, another interprets it as timing. One hears criticism, another hears information. Nothing external changes, but the life that unfolds does. Here's something subtle. You don't choose your state with effort. You recognize it. Effort belongs to the version of you that already feels disconnected. The aligned version doesn't try to fix the day. It listens to it. Just notice how that lands. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from trying to force yourself into a better version of reality. And there's a relief that comes from realizing you don't have to climb there. You shift sideways, not upward. Most suffering comes from trying to move forward while internally facing backward, while judging where you are, while resisting what you're feeling. Misalignment doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're holding a perspective that no longer matches where you are. And the body knows this before the mind does. That's why some versions of you wake up tense before any thoughts appear, and other versions wake up calm without explanation. The difference isn't discipline, it's resonance. Let's slow this down. Imagine two versions of you waking up on the same morning. Same alarm, same weather, same responsibilities. One version wakes up already bracing, already slightly late internally, already narrating the day as something to get through. The other version wakes up neutral, not positive, not negative, just present. That second version isn't naive, it's available. And availability changes everything. People respond differently to you. Opportunities feel visible instead of hidden. Your own thoughts feel cooperative instead of adversarial. This isn't because the universe decided to favor you. It's because you're not arguing with what's happening. Reality reflects state, not desire. If you've ever noticed that the harder you try to force clarity, the less clear things feel. That's why. Clarity emerges when the version of you asking the question is aligned with the answer. Around the 3-minute mark here, it's worth noticing something quietly. What we're pointing to becomes much more practical later, once the pattern is fully seen. Most people assume forgetting is a flaw, that if they could just remember who they really are, everything would work. But forgetting is part of the design. If you remembered the full mechanics of how reality responds to you, you'd stop participating naturally. You'd perform instead of live, so the remembering happens indirectly. Through feeling, through resonance, through recognition. That's why this doesn't feel like learning, it feels like something clicking into place. There's a reason you don't wake up fully aware of which version of you you're inhabiting. If you did, you'd try to control it. Instead, you feel your way into it. Notice this. When you're aligned, you don't think about alignment. When you're misaligned, you think about it constantly. The thinking isn't the solution, it's the signal. Just noticing that can change how you relate to your inner dialogue. Here's a gentle reset. You don't need to fix the version of you that feels off. You don't need to get rid of it. You don't need to judge it. It's simply a version passing through. And versions pass more easily when they're allowed. Many people believe growth means becoming someone else, but growth is actually about releasing versions of you that no longer need to keep going. You've already lived lives you don't live anymore. You just didn't call them that. Think about who you were 5 years ago, same name, different reality. Not because circumstances changed first, but because you did. The version of you that wakes up today is standing at a similar threshold, not dramatically, quietly, and that quietness is why it's easy to miss. Let's talk about effort for a moment. Effort isn't bad, but misplaced effort creates friction. When you try to act like a version of yourself you're not aligned with yet, life resists. Not to punish you, but to signal mismatch. The aligned version doesn't push, it responds. That's why some days you can do very little and feel satisfied, and other days you can do everything and still feel wrong. The difference isn't productivity, it's coherence. Here's another internal reset. If something feels harder than it needs to be, it probably is. And that doesn't mean you're weak. It means the version of you attempting it isn't the one it's meant for. You've probably noticed that certain conversations flow effortlessly with some people and feel draining with others. That's not personality. That's state compatibility. The same applies to jobs, ideas, paths, even thoughts. Some thoughts belong to versions of you that are already dissolving. You don't need to answer them. You just need to let them finish. Around 10 minutes in, it becomes clearer why this matters more than strategy or planning, and we'll return to that gently. There's a quiet awakening happening right now. Not loud, not organized, not dramatic, individual, private, almost easy to dismiss. People aren't waking up to new information. They're waking up to themselves, noticing how reality actually responds to them. Less belief, more observation, less forcing, more noticing. This awakening doesn't look like certainty. It looks like calm curiosity. It looks like choosing not to react immediately, like letting moments breathe. And that changes which version of you continues the day. Here's something subtle but important. The version of you that wakes up doesn't decide the entire day, but it sets the tone of which versions become available, just like a radio frequency. You don't create the station, you tune to it. And tuning doesn't require effort. It requires sensitivity. Most people have been trained out of sensitivity. They call it weakness. They override it. But sensitivity is how alignment is felt. If you've ever felt off and ignored it, only to have the day confirm it, that wasn't bad luck, that was feedback you didn't hear yet. This isn't about being hyper-aware. It's about being honest. Honest with how you actually feel before you decide what to do. That honesty changes the version of you that acts. Here's another reset. You don't need to wake up positive, you just need to wake up present. Presence is neutral, and neutrality is powerful. When you stop demanding the day be a certain way, it often meets you halfway. That's not mystical, it's relational. Reality is relational. It doesn't respond to who you want to be, it responds to who you're being. And being isn't something you do, it's something you notice. You may recognize that some days you wake up already thinking about fixing yourself, improving, correcting, becoming. Those days often feel heavy. Other days, you wake up without that internal agenda, and things unfold with less resistance. That's not coincidence. The version of you that wakes up without self-negotiation lives a different life, not a better one, a truer one, and truth feels lighter. Around this point, some people realize they've been trying to earn alignment instead of allowing it. That realization tends to stay with them. If this resonates, you might notice it showing up in how you describe your days. Feel free to share that recognition if it feels natural. Now let's look at forgetting. You forget who you are on purpose, not consciously, structurally, because remembering too early would bypass experience. You're not here to control reality. You're here to experience it from different states. Each version of you adds texture, contrast, depth. Even the misaligned versions are not mistakes. They're explorations, and when an exploration completes, it releases itself. You don't have to exile old versions of you. They dissolve when they're understood. That's why recognition matters more than effort. Here's another gentle reset. If a pattern keeps repeating, it's not demanding action. It's asking for understanding. Understanding shifts state. State shifts experience, not the other way around. The version of you that wakes up tomorrow might hear this differently than the version listening now. That's not inconsistency. That's progression. You're not meant to lock into one version permanently. You're meant to move fluidly. What creates suffering is clinging, not to things but to identities. I am the one who struggles. I am the one who fixes. I am the one who waits. Those are versions, not truths. And they loosen when seen. Around 20 minutes in, this connects to something broader, not bigger, just wider, and we'll let that emerge naturally. Here's something many people quietly feel but rarely say. There's a sense that life is happening with them sometimes, and to them at other times. That distinction isn't philosophical, it's experiential. When life happens with you, you feel included. When it happens to you, you feel separate. The difference is the version of you present. Inclusion is alignment. Separation is misalignment. No blame, no failure, just feedback. Here's another reset. You don't need to cross a threshold to deserve ease. Ease is the indicator you're already there. When you start trusting ease, life becomes more responsive, not instantly, not dramatically, but reliably. You might notice fewer internal arguments, shorter emotional recoveries, clearer yeses and nos. That's the version of you waking up more often. Not permanently, but increasingly. If you reflect on this in your own life, you may notice specific moments where everything shifted without explanation. Those moments matter more than milestones. And if that recognition feels familiar, others reading may recognize themselves in it too. We're not moving toward an ending here. We're widening a lens, because the version of you that wakes up tomorrow morning will still forget and still remember. And that's exactly how it's meant to be. You don't graduate from being human, you soften into it. The quieter you become inside, the more clearly reality speaks back. Not in words, in timing, in tone, in ease. The conversation between you and life is always ongoing. It doesn't stop when this ends. It continues the next time you wake up, in whatever version of you opens their eyes. And that version will live a life that feels just a little different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And that recognition doesn't conclude anything. It simply keeps unfolding. There's another layer to this that usually only becomes visible after you've stopped trying to name it. It's the realization that the version of you that wakes up doesn't just influence how you feel. It quietly determines what feels available to you that day. Not opportunities in the dramatic sense, but responses, timing, tone. You've probably noticed that on certain days, solutions seem obvious, not because you're smarter, but because you're not tense. On other days, even simple decisions feel loaded. Everything has weight. Every option feels wrong. The world didn't change overnight. The lens did. And what's important here is this. The lens doesn't need to be adjusted forcefully. It adjusts naturally when it's no longer being defended. Most people spend years defending versions of themselves they no longer live in. Old strategies, old identities, old ways of bracing. That defense shows up as tension, as mental noise, as urgency where none is needed. The aligned version of you isn't louder, it's quieter. It doesn't announce itself with confidence. It just doesn't argue. Notice how different that feels from the idea of improving yourself. Improvement implies distance from where you are. Alignment implies presence with where you are. That distinction changes everything. Here's a subtle shift worth noticing. When you're misaligned, you tend to ask, "What should I do?" When you're aligned, the question doesn't arise in the same way. Action feels implied. Next steps feel obvious. Not because you have answers, but because you're not split. Split attention creates friction. Unified attention creates flow. And unity doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from dropping the internal debate. Here's a gentle reset. If you feel stuck, check whether you're negotiating with yourself. Stuckness is often just prolonged negotiation. The version of you that wakes up and trusts itself even slightly moves through the day with less resistance. That trust doesn't come from certainty. It comes from coherence. You might recognize this in moments when you say something without overthinking and it lands perfectly, or when you take a small action that feels oddly right, even if it doesn't make sense on paper. Those moments aren't accidents. They're glimpses of a version of you that isn't trying to manage reality. It's responding to it. Reality responds back in kind. This is why forcing positive thinking rarely works. It's a mismatch. You can't layer optimism on top of misalignment and expect harmony. Reality feels the contradiction immediately. But when you allow yourself to feel neutral, not hopeful, not defeated, things begin to reorganize. Neutrality is underrated. Neutrality is the doorway. From there, alignment becomes possible without effort. You may have noticed that some versions of you are constantly scanning for signs, validation, confirmation, permission. Other versions don't look outward as much. They move first and interpret later. Those versions aren't reckless. They're attuned. They're listening to something quieter than thought, not intuition in a dramatic sense, more like internal spaciousness. That spaciousness is what allows reality to feel responsive instead of rigid. Here's another reset. If you feel pressure to decide, pause and notice where the pressure is coming from. Pressure is rarely external. The world doesn't rush you. Your interpretation of it does. The version of you that wakes up already rushing will find reasons to keep rushing. The version that wakes up unhurried will find space where there seem to be none. This isn't about slowing down physically, it's about internal tempo, and internal tempo is contagious. It affects conversations, outcomes, timing. People respond to it without knowing why. You've felt this from others. Some people make you feel calm just by being present. Others make you tense without saying a word. That's not personality, that's state. The same is true for you. Your state speaks before you do. Which version of you is speaking most often? Not as a judgment, as a curiosity. Curiosity loosens identity. Judgment hardens it. Another layer emerges when you realize that even confusion has aligned and misaligned forms. Aligned confusion feels open. Misaligned confusion feels stuck. One says, "I don't know yet." The other says, "I should know by now." Only one of those allows movement. The version of you that wakes up without self-criticism lives in a reality that feels more forgiving. Not because mistakes disappear, but because learning replaces punishment. Suffering isn't caused by pain. It's caused by resistance to pain. Pain moves, resistance loops. The aligned version of you lets pain pass through. The misaligned version tries to control it. Control tightens perception. Allowance widens it. Widened perception reveals options that were always there. Here's another reset. If something feels emotionally charged, it's probably not asking to be solved. It's asking to be felt clearly. Feeling clearly changes state. State changes experience, no extra effort required. At some point, many people notice that the idea of a single fixed self stops making sense. You're not inconsistent. You're contextual. Different environments, different states, different expressions, all real, none permanent. The problem only arises when you try to lock one version in place. The version of you that wakes up today is not obligated to be the version from yesterday. And relief often comes from realizing that. You don't have to carry continuity as a burden. Continuity happens naturally through values, not identities. Values feel steady. Identities feel heavy. This is why some people feel lighter when they stop explaining themselves. Explanation is often an attempt to stabilize identity. The aligned version of you doesn't need to be explained. It's felt. That's true internally and externally. When you stop narrating your experience to yourself, experience becomes simpler. Less commentary, more contact. Reality becomes less abstract and more immediate. And immediacy is where alignment lives. Another quiet realization often appears here. You don't move into a new life all at once. You drift. You drift into different versions of yourself gradually, often without noticing, until one day you look back and realize, I don't respond the same way anymore. That's awakening, not fireworks. Not declarations, just changed reflexes, changed defaults. The version of you that wakes up with fewer reflexive reactions lives in a reality that feels less aggressive. The world hasn't softened. Your relationship to it has. Here's another reset. Notice what you take personally. That's often where identity is still gripping. As identity loosens, personalization fades, and with it, much of the friction. People's moods stop feeling like messages. Delays stop feeling like judgments. Silence stops feeling like rejection. All of that energy returns to you, and with it, clarity. You may recognize that certain thoughts only appear when you're tired, hungry, or overstimulated. Those thoughts aren't truths. They're state artifacts. The version of you that wakes up rested hears different thoughts than the one that wakes up depleted. Thoughts don't define you. They reveal conditions. Changing conditions changes thoughts automatically. No mental argument required. This is why forcing affirmations rarely works. They fight conditions instead of addressing them. Alignment addresses conditions by allowing them. Allowing doesn't mean liking. It means not resisting. Resistance multiplies effort. Allowance simplifies it. The version of you that wakes up and allows what's present finds that what's present often shifts on its own. That can feel unsettling at first, because control feels safer than trust. But control is exhausting. Trust is restful. And rest changes perception. Perception changes reality, not by magic, by relationship. Another layer appears when you notice how quickly alignment can return. You don't need to fix your whole life. You just need to stop arguing with the moment. Often, that's enough. A breath you didn't force, a thought you didn't chase, a reaction you didn't amplify. Those small shifts accumulate. They're not dramatic, they're consistent. Consistency belongs to alignment, not effort. Effort fluctuates. Alignment stabilizes. This is why the aligned version of you often feels strangely ordinary. No highs, no lows, just presence. And presence feels like relief. Here's another reset. If you're waiting to feel different before you live differently, you may be waiting in the wrong direction. Living from presence creates feeling, not the other way around. That doesn't mean acting prematurely. It means acting honestly. Honesty with state precedes clarity of action. The version of you that wakes up and pretends to feel fine lives in a reality that feels dishonest. The version that acknowledges discomfort without drama lives in a reality that feels workable. Workable is underrated. You don't need life to be perfect. You need it to be workable. Alignment creates workability. As this unfolds, something else becomes clear. You're not trying to reach a final version of yourself. There is no final version. There are only present versions. And presence is always enough. The quiet awakening happening globally isn't about enlightenment. It's about sincerity. People are becoming more sincere with themselves. Less performance, less pretending, more noticing. That's why some old systems feel brittle. They rely on pretending. Alignment doesn't. Alignment thrives on honesty. And honesty feels grounding. The version of you that wakes up grounded doesn't need to prove anything. It listens, it responds, it adjusts. Life feels less like a test and more like a conversation. That conversation doesn't end here. It continues in how you wake up tomorrow, in which version opens their eyes, in how gently or tightly they meet the day. And whichever version that is, it's not wrong. It's just one more expression passing through a reality that's always responding. There's a moment that happens quietly, often without ceremony, when you realize you're no longer trying to become someone, you're just here. That moment doesn't announce itself as progress. It feels almost ordinary. And because it's ordinary, it's easy to overlook how much has changed. The version of you that wakes up no longer scans the day for proof of worth. It doesn't ask reality to confirm its value. It moves first, not aggressively, naturally, and reality responds differently to that posture. Not kinder, clearer. What many people miss is that clarity isn't something you reach. It's something that appears when internal noise settles. Noise comes from resistance, from comparison, from trying to be ahead of yourself. The aligned version of you isn't ahead, it's here. That presence creates a subtle authority, not dominance, groundedness. People feel it, situations adjust to it, not because you demand anything, but because you're no longer fragmented. Fragmentation is exhausting. It's the feeling of one part of you wanting to move while another part holds back. One part saying yes while another whispers no. That inner split projects outward. Life mirrors it with mixed signals, delays, misunderstandings. When the split softens, reality simplifies. Not perfectly, but noticeably. Here's a quiet reset. If you feel pulled in opposite directions, don't choose yet. First, notice which version of you is doing the pulling. Choice made from misalignment multiplies complexity. Choice made from presence reduces it. Sometimes the most aligned action is no action at all. Not avoidance, integration. Integration is when parts of you stop competing, and when that happens, movement resumes on its own. Many people confuse alignment with motivation. They wait to feel energized, but alignment often feels calm before it feels energized. Stillness first, momentum later. That's why forcing yourself forward can feel like walking against the wind. You're not lazy, you're out of phase. Phase shifts don't require pushing, they require settling. Think about how many times you've tried to motivate yourself when what you actually needed was rest, honesty, or space. The version of you that wakes up rested lives in a different reality than the one that wakes up depleted. Not morally better, functionally clearer. Clarity changes how long things take, how conversations land, how problems resolve. Time itself feels different. On aligned days, time stretches. On misaligned days, it collapses. That's not external scheduling, that's internal pacing. Another quiet realization emerges here. You don't need to fix your perception, you need to trust it more selectively. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every feeling requires interpretation. Some experiences simply want to pass through without becoming stories. The version of you that wakes up and narrates everything creates a heavier life. The version that lets moments be moments lives more lightly. Lightness isn't carelessness, it's efficiency. You conserve energy by not over-processing, and conserved energy makes alignment easier. Here's another reset. If you're tired, simplify. Not your goals, your inner commentary. Silence doesn't erase meaning, it reveals it. In silence, you start to notice how often life offers small confirmations, a conversation that arrives just when you stop searching, an idea that surfaces when you're relaxed, not straining. Those aren't coincidences to analyze, they're reflections to notice. Reality doesn't shout, it echoes, and it echoes most clearly when you're not shouting internally. This is where the idea of parallel versions becomes practical, not abstract. You don't jump timelines, you slide states, and sliding happens continuously. The version of you listening now is not exactly the same version that started listening. That's subtle, but real. Awakening works like that. It doesn't replace you, it refines you, it removes excess tension from how you meet the world. As tension dissolves, life feels less like resistance and more like response. Response implies relationship, and relationship implies participation. You're not observing life from outside it. You're inside a feedback loop. State, perception, experience, state. When state changes, the loop reorganizes. That's why suffering isn't a punishment. It's a signal of friction in the loop, not a failure. Information that becomes useful once it's no longer feared. Fear tightens loops. Curiosity loosens them. The aligned version of you is curious, not vigilant. Vigilance assumes threat. Curiosity assumes coherence. Coherence doesn't mean safety. It means intelligibility. Life makes sense even when it's difficult. That sense-making doesn't come from explanation. It comes from acceptance. Acceptance isn't resignation. It's accuracy. Seeing what's actually here, without overlay. When you see clearly, action aligns naturally. You don't have to convince yourself. The version of you that wakes up convinced lives in a reality that constantly tests that conviction. The version that wakes up open lives in a reality that collaborates. Collaboration feels like ease. Ease doesn't mean nothing happens. It means what happens moves. Stuckness is what hurts. Movement heals. Sometimes movement looks like doing less. Sometimes it looks like doing something different. Sometimes it looks like waiting without tension. Waiting without tension is rare, but powerful. It signals trust. Trust isn't blind belief. It's experiential confidence built from noticing patterns. You've already seen that when you stop forcing, things rearrange. You may not have trusted it yet, but you've seen it. That recognition matters. If you want to reflect on this, you might notice moments in your life where stopping effort changed the outcome more than doubling it ever did. Those moments tend to stay with people. Another layer becomes clear near the end of this exploration. You're not waking up into a different world. You're waking up into a different relationship with the same world. And relationship is everything. It determines whether challenges feel meaningful or draining, whether uncertainty feels open or threatening, whether the future feels heavy or undefined in a good way. Undefined can be spacious. Spaciousness allows movement. Movement creates life. The version of you that wakes up spacious doesn't rush to fill the day with identity. It lets the day reveal itself. That revelation isn't dramatic, it's subtle. It shows up as fewer internal objections, as quieter mornings, as clearer evenings, and eventually, as the sense that life is not something you have to survive. It's something you're participating in. That participation doesn't end when the video does. It continues the next time you pause before reacting, the next time you notice tension before obeying it, the next time you allow a version of yourself to pass instead of clinging to it. You don't need to hold on to this understanding. It will revisit you on its own, in the way you wake up, in the tone of your thoughts, in how life answers you back. And if at some point you notice yourself living slightly differently without knowing exactly why, that's not something to explain away. It's something to recognize. Others notice it too, often quietly, in their own timing. This isn't a conclusion, it's a continuation, a conversation between you and reality that keeps adjusting as different versions of you open their eyes and step into the day.